There is a specific kind of silence that happens in a room right after a man finishes begging a woman to stay. It's a heavy, suffocating silence where you can actually feel the last shred of her attraction for you evaporating into the air. Behavioral observations suggest that in that moment, she isn't looking at the man she married. She's looking at an emotional debtor who is bankrupt. Psychological patterns show that when you plead for her heart, you are effectively telling her that she is the prize and you are the pet. You think you're being vulnerable to save the relationship, but in her subconscious mind, you are proving that you no longer have the strength to lead her. The more you chase, the faster she runs, because no woman wants to be caught by a man who has lost his own sovereignty. If you've ever felt the sting of her looking at you with pity instead of passion, you need to watch every second of this video. We are going to dismantle the nice guy strategy of begging and show you why walking away is the only way to truly stand up. Betrayal is loud, but rebuilding is quiet. If you're the man doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes, consider this your base of operations. We don't do hype. We do high-level discipline. Most men will watch this, nod their heads, and change nothing. I'm not looking for them. I'm looking for the man who is done with the why and is ready for the how. Hit subscribe to join a brotherhood that values silence over shouting and strength over sympathy. Leave a comment if you're standing with us today. Presence is power. Claim yours. The first psychological barrier we must break is the illusion of emotional currency. Behavioral observations suggest that men who plead believe that love is a bank account where effort and kindness can pay off a debt of disinterest. Psychological patterns show that this is a fatal flaw. You cannot buy respect with submission. When you plead, you are offering her more of yourself when she has already decided that the version of you she has is not enough. You are the victim of sunk cost infatuation when you think that one more speech or one more tear will change the chemical reality of her lack of respect. She doesn't want your words. She wants to feel the weight of a man who doesn't need her to survive. We also have to analyze the biological signal of the beggar. Behavioral patterns show that throughout human history, strength has always been the primary security feature a man provides. Psychological observations suggest that when you plead, you are sending a signal that your internal security has collapsed. To her primal brain, a man who begs is a man who cannot protect the tribe. You are the victim of evolutionary devaluation when your emotional outburst makes her feel unsafe. She doesn't feel unsafe because you are mean. She feels unsafe because you are weak. She realizes that if you can't even handle her, you certainly can't handle the world. This is why she goes cold. It is a biological response to a faulty signal. Let's look at the path of Elias. Elias was a man who prided himself on being the provider. He worked 12-hour shifts to give his wife, Sarah, the dream life. But Elias made a critical mistake. He made Sarah his identity. When Sarah started pulling away and eventually admitted she was confused about her feelings for a former flame, Elias didn't set a standard. He didn't say, "I don't tolerate confusion in my marriage." Instead, Elias collapsed. He started writing 10-page letters. He bought flowers every day. He sat her down for talks that lasted until 3 a.m., crying and asking her, "What can I do to make you love me again?"
Elias is the loser in our story because he engaged in the negotiation of the spirit. He thought he could reason Sarah into feeling. But psychological patterns show that desire is not a logical choice. The more Elias pleaded, the more disgusted Sarah became. She didn't see devotion, she saw desperation. She saw a man who had no bottom line. Because Elias wouldn't walk away, Sarah felt she could test the waters with the other man without losing her safety net. She stayed in the house for months, using Elias's niceness while she planned her exit. Elias ended up psychologically eviscerated. He spent his savings on a woman who was already gone, and he spent his dignity on a second chance that was never actually on the table. He proved that a man who stays to beg is a man who is volunteering to be the last option. He was a victim of the pity cycle, proving that when you trade your pride for a promise, you usually end up with neither. The second major psychological pattern is the power of the silent departure. Behavioral observations suggest that respect is often born in the absence of a man. Psychological observations show that a woman only values what she might lose. When you plead, you are guaranteeing your presence. You are telling her, no matter what you do, I will be here, crying on the floor. This removes the risk of her behavior. You are the victim of hyper-availability when your pleading makes her indifferent. She doesn't have to choose you because you've already chosen for her. The sovereign man understands that the most powerful thing he can say is nothing as he walks out the door. Furthermore, we must address the transfer of authority. Behavioral patterns show that in a healthy relationship, there is a balance of power. Psychological observations suggest that pleading is the final act of handing over the crown. When you beg for her heart, you are telling her, you are the judge, the jury, and the executioner of my happiness. This burden is too much for any woman to carry. She starts to resent you because you've made her responsible for your pulse. You are the victim of authority displacement when you realize that she disrespects you because you've given her too much power over your soul. The reality is that the heart cannot be negotiated. Behavioral observations suggest that attraction is a reflex, not a decision. Psychological patterns show that pleading is the antithesis of attraction. You are the sun. You provide the light and the heat. If the planet wants to spin out of orbit, you don't chase the planet. You maintain your gravity. You stay hot, you stay bright, you stay sovereign. If she leaves the orbit, she leaves the warmth. That is the natural law. You have to realize that you are the captain of the vessel. Behavioral observations suggest that if the first mate wants to jump overboard, the captain doesn't jump after her while the ship crashes into the rocks. The captain stays at the wheel. He steers the ship. He values the mission more than the passenger. You are the source. If she doesn't value the source, you close the valve. Do not be the man who begs for a drop when you are the owner of the well. You are a sovereign man, and a sovereign man knows that the only heart worth having is the one that recognizes his worth without being convinced. Average men look for excuses. Disciplined men look for results. If you're the man who does the work when the room is empty and the cameras are off, you've found your circle. Don't just nod and scroll past. That's what the masses do. Subscribe to anchor your standards. Drop a comment to mark day one of the new build. No hype, no noise. Just the blueprint. Step up or step aside. The third psychological reason the pleading era must end is the extinction of the mystery. Behavioral observations suggest that when a man begs, he becomes totally transparent. There is no depth left for her to explore because he has exposed every weakness in a single outburst. Psychological patterns show that attraction requires a level of the unknown. When you plead, you are a solved puzzle that she no longer finds interesting. You are the victim of predictability fatigue when she knows that no matter how poorly she treats you, you will always be there, asking for more. To reclaim respect, you must reintroduce the element of the unknown. You must become the man who is comfortable in the shadows of his own life, a man whose next move cannot be guessed. We also have to analyze the burden of the emotional caretaker. Behavioral patterns show that when a man pleads for his wife's heart after her infidelity or disrespect, he's essentially asking her to fix the wound she created. Psychological observations suggest that this is a conflict of interest. She cannot be both the arsonist and the fireman. When you beg her to make it right, you are putting her in a position of authority over your healing. You are the victim of displaced recovery when you wait for her permission to feel strong again. The sovereign man understands that his healing is a private enterprise.
He doesn't need her to apologize to move forward. He forgives himself for staying too long and promotes himself to a higher standard of company. Let's look at the path of Soren. Soren was a man who understood that silence is the language of the wise. When he discovered his partner, Clara, was planning an exit while using his resources, Soren didn't panic. He didn't confront her with tears. He didn't ask why. Soren realized that the why didn't matter. The result was the only data point that was real. Soren is the winner in our story because he utilized the law of absolute withdrawal. While Clara was waiting for the typical argument or the typical pleading session, Soren was quietly deconstructing the connection. He moved his focus to his body and his bank account. He spoke to Clara only when necessary, and his tone was polite but polar. He didn't beg for her to stay. He facilitated her departure. Soren won because he stayed sovereign. When Clara finally realized that Soren was gone emotionally long before she could leave physically, she experienced a shock of reality. She realized that she had lost access to a high-value man who didn't need her. Soren didn't take her back when she started regretting her choices. He realized that a woman who only respects you when you are leaving is a woman who will disrespect you the moment you return. Soren stayed sovereign because he realized that the only thing more powerful than a man who has everything is a man who is willing to walk away from everything. He became a master of high-standard selection, proving that the strongest man is the one who values his peace more than his partnership. He didn't beg for her heart. He guarded his own until a worthy candidate appeared.
The fourth major reason is the restoration of the primal frame. Behavioral observations suggest that a man who pleads is fighting against his nature. Psychological patterns show that masculinity is action-oriented, not explanation-oriented. When you plead, you are trying to talk your way into a feeling. It never works. You are the victim of verbal desperation when you think one more conversation will fix a character flaw in your partner. Ending the pleading era means returning to action. It means building, lifting, and leading. It means being the man that a high-value woman would be terrified to lose, rather than the man who is terrified to be alone. Furthermore, we must address the sovereignty of the self-chosen path. Behavioral patterns show that a pleading man is reacting, a sovereign man is initiating. Psychological observations suggest that your respect returns the moment you stop reacting to her coldness and start initiating your own greatness. You are the victim of reactive slavery until the day you decide that your morning routine, your career goals, and your inner peace are non-negotiable, regardless of her mood or her loyalty. The final realization is that respect is a mirror. Behavioral observation suggests that a woman can only respect a man to the exact degree he respects himself. If you devalue yourself by begging, the mirror reflects that devaluation back to you. Psychological patterns show that once you stand tall, the mirror has no choice but to change the image. You are the original, she is the reflection. If you don't like what you see in her eyes, change the man she is looking at. The reality is that the pleading man is a ghost of a man who used to be free. Behavioral observation suggests that desperation is the chain that keeps you locked in a losing battle. You are the source, you are the leader. If she doesn't bow to the standard, you don't lower the standard, you change the audience. Do not be the man who begs for a crumb at a table you built with your own hands. I have a smart question for the men who have the sovereign fortitude to finish this analysis on the end of the beggar. If you were selling a diamond and the buyer kept insulting the stone and offering you pennies, would you beg them to pay the full price, or would you put the diamond back in the case and walk away to find a buyer who knows what a diamond is worth? You are the diamond. Your time is the price. The disrespectful partner is the lowballer. Stop haggling over your worth. Drop a comment below and tell the Brotherhood what was the exact moment you realized that pleading was only making things worse. Was it the look of disgust on her face, or the realization that you had become a stranger to the man you used to be? How did you stand up and reclaim your frame? Share your moment of sovereignty.
Your refusal to beg might be the strength a brother needs to stop crawling and start walking again. Let's build the council of sovereign men together. If you're still watching, you didn't just hear this, you felt it. That tells me you're done with the noise and ready for the signal. Men who choose this path don't have to walk it in the dark. Subscribe to stand in the ranks with us. Drop a comment and tell me exactly what hit home. I pay attention to the men who speak up. Stay disciplined, hold the line, do the work. I'll see you in the trenches next time.